Someone your partner is close to laughs a little too warmly at their joke. And in half a second before a single rational thought loads, something floods through you, hot, ugly, and shockingly strong. Your chest tightens. Your mind starts writing stories. You feel like you could lose everything. And the strangest part? Some quiet, embarrassed corner of you is thinking, why is this so intense? Nothing even happened. Jealousy feels wildly out of proportion to the moment that triggers it. That's the clue. Because that reaction isn't really responding to a laugh across a room. It's an ancient alarm, built for a world where losing a partner could genuinely cost you everything, and it doesn't know the difference between then and now. Your jealousy is a smoke detector installed 100,000 years ago that has never once been recalibrated. We treat jealousy as either a character flaw, don't be so insecure, or as proof of love. If they were jealous, they'd care. Both miss what it actually is. An emotion evolution built to solve a specific, brutal, ancient problem, and one that now misfires constantly in a world it was never designed for. But, and this matters before we go one step further, explaining where a feeling comes from is not the same as endorsing what people do with it. So we'll untangle 6 things carefully. The ancient job jealousy was built for, how deep it runs, why it hijacks you before you can think, the genuinely disputed science of who feels it, why your phone makes it 1,000 times worse, and the line between the feeling and the damage. Let's go. Start with the function. In our deep past, a committed partner wasn't just nice to have. For raising a vulnerable child through the dangerous years, that bond could be the difference between a child surviving and not. So, losing a partner's commitment to a rival was, in cold evolutionary terms, a catastrophe. Lost support, lost resources, lost reproductive investment. Any emotion that made our ancestors notice that threat early and act to protect the bond would have been favored, even if it felt terrible. Jealousy is theorized to be exactly that. An early warning system against losing your partner to someone else. It feels awful on purpose. Comfortable emotions don't motivate urgent action. Evolution didn't build jealousy to feel good. It built it to feel like an emergency. It's less romantic passion and more biological fire alarm, and fire alarms are not designed to be pleasant. But if it were just a human cultural quirk, you'd expect it to vary wildly and sometimes vanish. It doesn't. And the reason is that it runs far deeper than us. Here's a clue about how old this wiring is. We're not the only species that does it. Across the animal world, wherever a pair bond and shared investment in offspring exist, you tend to find some version of mate guarding, behavior aimed at keeping a partner close and rivals away. Many pair bonding birds do it. Our primate relatives do it. That pattern tells you something important. Jealousy isn't a modern hang-up invented by romance novels or insecure people. It's an ancient behavioral tool that shows up again and again in creatures that, like us, invest heavily in a partner and shared young. It predates language, culture, and marriage entirely, which is exactly why it feels less like a thought you're having and more like something happening to you. And that's because of where in the brain it fires. Even birds do jealousy. You're in a very old, very feathered club. Here's why jealousy feels like it happens to you rather than being something you decide. It doesn't run through the slow, reasoning part of your brain first. It fires through the fast, ancient threat detection circuitry, the same rough machinery behind fear and fight or flight. That's why the physical symptoms are basically alarm symptoms: racing heart, tunnel vision, a flood of stress chemistry, the urge to do something now. Your body is treating "I might be losing my partner" as a survival threat, because for your ancestors, that's exactly what it was. And a threat response doesn't wait for evidence. It fires on the possibility, a glance, a tone, a delayed text, and then hands your reasoning brain a story already soaked in alarm. By the time you're thinking about it, you're not analyzing. You're justifying a feeling that already hit. Jealousy shoots first and lets your imagination write the police report afterward. But here's where it gets more personal, because not everyone's alarm is set to the same sensitivity, and what turns the dial up isn't really your partner at all. Psychologists find it useful to split jealousy into two very different flavors. There's reactive jealousy, the normal, understandable response to a genuine threat, like actually discovering flirty messages. Almost everyone feels that, and it's not the problem. Then there's suspicious or anxious jealousy, the constant, low-grade, evidence-free kind. The checking, the interrogating. The story your mind writes when your partner is simply 10 minutes late. And this kind usually isn't really about your partner's behavior at all. It's about you, specifically how safe you feel being loved. Remember attachment styles. People high in attachment anxiety, those who carry a quiet background fear that they're not truly lovable, tend to have a jealousy alarm cranked to maximum sensitivity. Their smoke detector goes off at the smell of toast, so two people can face the exact same harmless situation, and one feels nothing while the other spirals, because they're not reacting to the situation. They're reacting to an old wound. Sometimes the threat isn't the stranger across the room. It's the voice in your own head insisting you were never enough. Now, you've probably heard a very confident claim about who feels jealous about what. And here's where I have to be honest with you, because this is where pop science lies. You've probably heard the tidy version, that men are wired to feel jealous about sexual infidelity and women about emotional infidelity, because ancient men feared raising another man's child and ancient women feared losing a provider's commitment. There's a real study behind this. In 1992, David Buss found that when forced to choose, about 60% of men picked sexual infidelity as more distressing, versus only about 17% of women. That result has been replicated many times and defended in later meta-analyses. But, and this is the honest part most videos skip, it's genuinely contested. The sex difference tends to show up strongly when people are forced to pick one or the other. When researchers measure jealousy on a sliding scale instead, or put people under time pressure, the gap often shrinks or vanishes, and both sexes rate sexual infidelity as deeply distressing. So the truth is, there may be a real average difference, but it's smaller and shakier than the confident version you've been sold. Anyone who tells you human mating psychology is simple and settled is selling something. What isn't disputed is that jealousy, in some form, is close to universal. And in the modern world, that universal alarm has been handed the worst possible environment to live in. Here's the twist that connects all of this to your actual life. Your jealousy alarm was built for a world of a few dozen people you could see with your own eyes. It fed on clear physical signals. Who's standing too close? Who's leaving with whom? Now drop that ancient alarm into a smartphone. Suddenly it's swimming in an ocean of ambiguous signals it was never designed to interpret. A like on an old photo. The gray typing bubble that stops. A message marked red with no reply. A new follower. A laughing emoji to a name you don't recognize. None of it is evidence of anything, but your alarm can't tell the difference, so it treats every ambiguous ping as a possible predator at the edge of camp. And unlike a caveman, you can now investigate endlessly. The ancient urge to check on a rival used to hit a natural wall. You'd actually have to walk over there. Now you can scroll, refresh, and reread for hours. The tool built to protect the bond becomes a machine for manufacturing threats that were never there. And here's the cruel trick. The checking feels productive, like you're gathering evidence that will finally let you relax. It never does. Each scroll just sharpens the alarm and teaches your brain that snooping is how you cope. So the itch comes back stronger. The relief is always one more refresh away, and it never actually arrives. Your Stone Age alarm now has unlimited data and a 3 a.m. search history. So the feeling is ancient, the environment is hostile, and the alarm is screaming. Which brings us to the part that actually matters for your life, because a loud alarm still doesn't get to run your behavior. Slow down here, because this is the most important layer in the whole video. Jealousy being ancient, automatic, and universal explains why you feel it. It says nothing about whether you're allowed to act on it. This distinction isn't academic. The exact same alarm can lead to two completely different places. Channeled inward, it can be information, a signal that you feel insecure or that something in the relationship genuinely needs an honest conversation. Channeled outward as control, checking their phone, dictating who they can see, punishing them for the feeling in your chest, it stops being an emotion and becomes harm. Evolution handed you the alarm. It did not hand anyone permission to control another person because the alarm went off. The bell ringing is not consent to burn the house down. The whole point of having a reasoning brain sitting on top of that ancient circuit is that you get to decide what happens next. And this isn't an abstract philosophical distinction. Across cultures, jealousy is one of the most commonly named triggers behind controlling, coercive, and even violent behavior toward partners. That's not an argument that jealousy is evil. It's the exact reason the line between feeling it and acting on it matters more here than almost anywhere else. A feeling harms no one. What a person chooses to do with it can harm everyone. Feel the smoke alarm. Do not become the fire. So if you can't obey it and you can't wish it away, what are you actually supposed to do with it? Here's the practical part. And it's more hopeful than it sounds. You can't delete jealousy. It's standard equipment. But you can change your relationship to it in 3 moves. First, name it. Don't act on it. The moment you feel the flood, label it. That's my jealousy alarm going off. Which alone hands a sliver of control back to your reasoning brain before the story takes over. Second, ask which kind it is. Is this reactive, a response to something real you should calmly talk about? Or suspicious, evidence-free, the same old spiral? If it's the second kind, the work isn't surveilling your partner. It's tending the insecurity underneath, the part of you that doesn't quite believe it's safe to be loved. That can mean catching the old story as it starts, I'm not enough, and questioning it instead of feeding it. And if that story runs deep, it's exactly the kind of thing a good therapist can help you unwind. And third, communicate the feeling, not the accusation. I felt a spike of insecurity earlier, and I want to talk about it builds a bond. Who were you texting? Burns one. One treats your partner as an ally against the alarm. The other treats them as the enemy. I felt insecure, opens a door. Give me your phone, installs one, with a lock on the wrong side. Step back and jealousy stops looking like either a flaw or a love meter and starts looking like an old survival tool running in the wrong century. It was built to protect a fragile, life-or-death bond in a world of small bands, and now it fires at a lingering text, a coworker's laugh, a like on a photo, treating each one like a predator at the edge of camp. Then we handed it a phone and told it to guess. Understanding that doesn't make the feeling vanish, but it changes what you do with it, because you can finally see it for what it is. An ancient false alarm, not a verdict, and definitely not an order. So the next time that hot, disproportionate wave hits over almost nothing, pause and name it. That's not proof you're being betrayed, and it's not proof of how much you love someone. It's a 100,000-year-old fire alarm doing the only thing it knows how to do. You can listen to what it's telling you about yourself. You just don't have to obey it. And that raises the deepest question in this whole series. We've spent all this time on love fading, love misfiring, love threatened, but why does this fragile, inconvenient, alarm-triggering thing exist at all? Why humans fall in love in the first place is the next one.